The Mellow Mood vibes are back, but this time for summer. Today we are diving into how to knit a top you will love, the Mellow Mood top. Do you have a favorite sweater you can't stop wearing? For me, it's definitely the Mellow Mood sweater, but let's face it, it's a bit too cozy for summer. So I decided to create a lighter version, a top. Just like the sweater, this top has the same seamless top-down construction that makes it a joy to knit. But this time we will use a lightweight yarn, creating breathable and airy fabric. And you get to choose your preferred finishing touch, the classic 2x2 ribbing for a timeless look or a minimalist I-cord edge for a clean modern look. Whichever you choose, it's going to be amazing. This top has a super comfy and flattering fit, but I wanted this project to be more than just stylish. I wanted it to knit up effortlessly too. That's why my awesome test knitters and I tested it for different body types, and you can check their beautiful creations on Ravelry for some serious inspiration. Now, you might be thinking, okay Julia, that's wonderful, but can I really knit this if I've never made a top garment before? Yes, you can. I actually have a tutorial for the Mellow Mood sweater right here on this channel. This top is very similar, and it proved that even beginners can knit this design. As long as you know how to knit and purl and have tackled projects like scarves or hats, you've got the basic skills to create this top. It's fair to say, though, that because we are using a thinner yarn, it will take a little longer to complete than the sweater. But trust me, it won't feel like a chore. The yoke comes together quickly, keeping you motivated, and then you will start effortless knitting in the round. Plus, the side ribbing adds a touch of interest to keep things from getting boring. But be aware, this project is highly addictive. You might find yourself creating more than one top. My first sample in a teddy bear brown color ended up a bit too big for me. But guess what? It just gave me a perfect excuse to unravel it and knit again, alongside the pink one for the video tutorial. Who knows, maybe you will be inspired to knit the original Mellow Mood sweater next. If you like this design as much as I am, please let me know with a thumbs up. So, if you are excited to get started knitting your own Mellow Mood top, head over on Etsy or Ravelry to download the pattern, because you will need the stitch count for your size to ensure the perfect fit. This video tutorial is your visual guide walking you confidently through each step of the PDF pattern. Even beginners and those who didn't knit for a long time can create this top alongside me. In the description box below this video, I have left for you all the information you need, including yarn recommendations, needle size, all the links, everything you need to know to get started. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment and I will be happy to answer. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel Knit with Nick if you are not already, because you don't want to miss the next exciting project, the brand new drop shoulder sweater. The brand new drop shoulder sweater with a beautiful yet simple stitch pattern. Perfect for beginners. And if you are looking for more knitting inspiration or for a peek behind the scenes, join me on Instagram. Now, let's dive into the first steps of knitting the Mellow Mood top. Alright friends, this top has a top-down construction, which means we start with the neck first. With smaller needles, 3.5 mm and 40 cm cable length, this is US size 4, 16 inches, cast on the stitch count needed for your size. I use the long tail cast on, and to determine the long enough tail for all my stitches, I use one trick. I create 3 necklines with the yarn. That way I am guaranteed to have a long enough tail. Of course, feel free to use your preferred cast on method if that works better for you. Add one extra stitch for seamless join in the round. Once you've got all the stitches on your needle, double check they aren't twisted. Now let's join them in the round. Slip the first stitch from the left needle to the right needle. Pass the second stitch on the right needle over the one you just slipped and drop it off the needle. Slip the third stitch back to the left needle and gently tighten the stitches by pulling the yarn tails. Place the beginning of the round marker here. Next we will work a 2x2 rib with knit 2 stitches, Purl 2 stitches. For an even repattern, gently tighten the yarn a bit as you purl the first stitch after a knit. Keep repeating knit 2, purl 2 until you've finished the entire round. The next rounds are just as easy. Keep alternating knit 2, purl 2 until you've got 10-12 rounds of ribbing, depending on your size. The ribbing is completed. Now we start the yoke. This top features 10 stitch wide raglan lines with a broken rib stitch pattern. We will start with placing stitch markers to allocate raglan lines and make increases from the both sides of each of them. Round 0. This round is only for sizes 4XL and 5XL because they need additional stitches for the neckline. If we cast on the necessary amount of stitches from the beginning, the neckline for these sizes would be too wide. That's why you need to add stitches evenly around round 0 using make one left and make one right increases. If you don't know how to make one left or make one right, I will demonstrate these techniques in round 1. Just follow the instructions in the knitting pattern and make these increases in round 0 as well. Now, round 1. Take the 4mm 40 cm needles, this is US size 6, 16 inches, to your right hand and get ready to start with the first raglan line. I will be using the magic loop method with the long cable. If you are new to the magic loop, I've linked a tutorial above. We start with the first raglan line and knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, and the last knit 2. Place marker number 1. Next, we need to increase the stitch with the simplest make one left. Pick up the strand between the last stitch we knit and the next stitch from the front to back with your left needle. I help myself with my right hand needle. Next, knit this strand through the back loop. It's easier to get there from the front. I move my right needle from the front loop to the back loop and knit. And this is our newly added stitch. Then knit X stitches for your size for the back section. And make the next increase, but this time with make one right. Pick up the strand between the last stitch you knit and the next one from the back to front with the left hand needle. I use my right hand needle to simplify the process. Knit this newly picked up strand of yarn as if it were a regular stitch. Yes, it's tight, so simply move it to the tip of your needle or stretch it gently to loosen it up. The thinner and longer your needle tip, the easier it will be to make this stitch. Done. New stitch is added. Don't worry, you will master make one left and make one right before we will get to the end of this round. Place marker number 2. We have just finished the first raglan line and the back section of our Mellow Mood top. The right sleeve, front and the left sleeve all follow the same pattern. Let's tackle this round together. Work the next 10 stitches for the second raglan line with knit 2, purl 2, and place marker number 3. Make one left, and knit X stitches for your size for the right sleeve section. Now make one right, Place marker number 4. We have completed the back and right sleeve section and moving on to the front. For the next raglan line on the front, work the following: knit 2, purl 2, place marker number 5 and make one left. Knit X stitches for your size for the front section. Make one right. Place marker number 6. Only the second sleeve left. Work 10 stitches for the fourth raglan line with knit 2, purl 2. Place marker number 7. Make one left. And knit X stitches for your size for the left sleeve section. And the last, make one right. Here's our beginning of round marker, and in this round we have increased 8 stitches. Round 2 is our favorite round. Simply knit all the stitches. Done. Round 3 is identical to round 1, but you don't need to count stitches anymore because you place stitch markers. We will focus on working the first back section as an example, and the rest follow the same steps. Work 10 stitches for the first raglan line with already familiar pattern with knit 2, purl 2. Make an increase with make one left. And knit to the next marker for the back section. Make an increase with make one right. Slip marker, and we have the next raglan line. Work each raglan line the same way with knit 2, purl 2. And just like the back section, repeat all the steps you just learned for the other parts. That includes the increases and knitting between markers. So feel free to take a few minutes and complete this round on your own. Round 4 is the same as round 2 and all even numbered rounds. Our favorite knitting zen. Just knit all stitches. To work the yoke, we will repeat a pattern. Round 3 with increases and a 2x2 rib for the raglan lines, followed by round 4 with all knit stitches. Repeat these 2 rounds the required number of times for your size, and we will meet again at the first control point at the end of the yoke. To keep you on track and feel confident, I've included a round counter in the PDF knitting pattern. Print it out or use it on your phone or tablet, and this way you can easily check your progress and avoid any missed increases. Here is a quick tip to help you remember when to make increases. If you are purling stitches in the raglan line, that's your signal to make increases in this round. Before we dive into mindful and enjoyable knitting, I want to share some helpful tips. If you are using short circular needles, you will need to switch to longer ones as your stitch count increases. When adding a new skein of yarn, do it near the raglan line. This helps hide the yarn tails seamlessly. If you encounter a knot in the yarn, especially in the middle of the section, I highly recommend going back to the nearest raglan line. Cut the yarn with the knot and rejoin there. Otherwise, the knot might unravel or show up in your beautiful work. Lifelines are lifesavers for fixing mistakes. Use a thin yarn and a tapestry needle to thread through your leaf stitches every 10 centimeters 4 inches or at control points. This allows you easily unravel back to that point. Once you've knit about 15 centimeters or 6 inches past the ribbing, you can try on your project and see how it fits. Note for sizes 4XL and 5XL. At the end of the yoke, you will need to make increases only for the back and front sections because the sleeves already have enough stitches. We don't want the sleeves to be too wide, so stop increasing for the sleeves when you reach sleeve markers. In odd numbered rounds like 65, 67, make increases for the back section as usual. When you get to the right sleeve marker, just knit to the next marker. No increase. Then make increases for the front section and skip increasing for the sleeve. This way you will increase 4 stitches instead of 8. Alright friends, I wish you a very pleasant knitting experience, and we will meet again soon at the control point number 1, where we will try on our creation and I will show you how to shape the neckline. We have reached the first checkpoint. This is a great opportunity to see how our work looks so far. Slip half of the stitches onto the scrap yarn or other needles and try on the top. The neckline will appear wider once the sweater is finished and wet blocked. You can also check your gauge and ensure your knitted fabric isn't too tight or too loose. Now let's check the stitch count for each section. Don't worry if you missed a few stitches for the back, front or sleeves. Minor variations usually won't affect the final result. Ready to move on? Let's dive into shaping the neckline. It's time to shape that beautiful crew neck for our Mellow Mood top. We are at the beginning of the round on the right side of our work. Here's what we will be doing. We will be adding rows to the back section only, working flat back and forth between the raglan lines. This creates a nice little flap that shapes the neckline. And just to clarify, these aren't short rows. Round 1. Slip the beginning of the round marker and work the 10 stitches for the first raglan line with knit 2, purl 2. Slip a stitch marker and knit all the stitches for the back section until you reach the next marker. Slip that marker too and knit the 10 stitches for the next raglan line with another knit 2, purl 2. Round 2. Now turn your work to the wrong side and purl all stitches back to the beginning of the round marker. Great job! Now we will simply repeat rows 1 and 2 a total of 7 more times. That means you will need 16 rows in total for this section. Once you finished row 16, turn your work back to the right side. Well friends, we have reached another exciting step. We will put the sleeve stitches on hold for now and join the back and front pieces together. As usual, we are at the beginning of the round, ready to knit the next one. So begin with the 10 stitches for the raglan line with knit 2, purl 2. As you reach the marker, remove it along with any other remaining markers. Now, knit all the stitches for the back section until you reach the next marker. Next, work the 10 stitches for the second raglan line with knit 2, purl 2. Then we have our stitches for the right sleeve. This is where we put them on hold. If you are using the tapestry needle, carefully slip all the right sleeve stitches onto the scrap yarn. If you have the silicone cord, simply slip the stitches onto it. Now let's cast on stitches for the underarm using the backward loop method. After casting on the underarm stitches, we will work the next 10 raglan stitches with the usual knit 2, purl 2 pattern. Remember to tighten the very first stitch of this section to avoid any unwanted holes. Now knit all the stitches for the front section until you reach the next marker. Just like before, work the next 10 raglan stitches with knit 2, purl 2. Similar to the right sleeve, use your chosen method, tapestry needle or silicone cord, to hold the left sleeve stitches for now. Finally, cast on the required number of stitches for the other underarm section. Voila! We have put both sleeve stitches on hold and joined in the round the raglan lines, back and front pieces with the newly added underarm stitches. We are ready to work the body in the round. You are once again at the beginning of the round and ready to work the rib pattern and the back. Round 1. In this round we will knit every single stitch until the end. And to make things easier later, we will place 4 stitch markers to separate the rib pattern sections. First, knit the 10 stitches of the previous raglan line. And place a stitch marker here. Knit to the next rib pattern. Place a second marker. Up next, knit all the stitches within the rib pattern and the underarm section. They might feel a little tighter in this round, but don't worry, they will even out in the next round. Place a stitch marker here to mark the end of the first rib section. And continue knitting across the front section until you reach the beginning of the next rib section. Place another stitch marker here to mark the start of this new section. Now you can knit all the stitches within the rib pattern and the underarm stitches. Place the beginning of the round marker here. When adding a new skein of yarn, it's best to do it within the rib pattern section, either on this side or the opposite side. Round 2. Now comes the round where we create that stunning side rib pattern. Between each marker you will alternate knitting 2 stitches and purling 2 stitches to create the rib pattern. For all other sections between the rib markers, simply knit all the stitches. Let's start together. Knit 2, purl 2. Slip marker and knit to the next one. repeat these steps for other rib sections and for the front section. Round 3. Simply knit every single stitch until the end of the round. So we have 4 parts, separated with stitch markers. First ribbing pattern, back, a second ribbing pattern, front. We will repeat rounds 2 and 3 a few more times before taking a break at control point number 2, where we will try on our beautiful work in progress. We have reached control point number 2, which means it's time to see how our Mellow Mood top is coming along. Slip half of the stitches onto the scrap yarn or any other circular needles and try on the knitted piece. Since this is a top with positive ease, the armholes should sit comfortably close to your armpits. If you are happy with the fit, now it's time to choose your bottom edge style. I-cord edge. Prefer a clean, minimalist look. Keep repeating rounds 2 and 3 until you reach the desired length of your top. 2x2 rib edge. If you prefer a ribbed finish, repeat rounds 2 and 3, but stop 5 centimeters, 2.5 inches shorter than your final desired length. But what if the top doesn't quite fit perfectly yet? First things first, let's double check your gauge. Is it still matching the gauge specified in the pattern? If the top doesn't fit, here's what you can do. If the top is too wide, take a deep breath, relax, we can fix it. Carefully unravel back to the end of the yoke section. Now unravel 4-10 rounds, depending on how much you need to adjust, and re-knit those rounds without any increases. The stitch count will vary slightly for each section, but you can follow the regular knitting instructions since these are all knit stitches. Feeling a little tight? Here's how to add some ease. Unravel the raglan line for 4-6 rounds and re-knit these rounds with increases in each of them, but only for the back and front. Don't make increases in sleeves. Then proceed to the shaping the neckline section. If none of these solutions feel quite right, don't be discouraged. Sometimes starting over with a different size is the best option. It might seem like a setback, but trust me, a perfect fitting top is absolutely worth it in the end. This is all part of the learning and customizing process. Don't be afraid to experiment and find what works best for you. Alright, we've reached control point number 3, time to try on our creation again. How does it feel? Does the length look good? This is your chance to make any adjustments for length before continuing. Now that you are happy with the length, let's create a beautiful bottom edge for our Mellow Mood top. We have 2 options, a classic 2x2 ribbed edge or a minimalist I-cord finish. But before diving into the bottom edge, we will take a step to create a more fitted silhouette for the body. We will decrease the stitch count for the back and front section with evenly placed knit 2 stitches together. We will begin with the familiar 2x2 rib stitch for the first 10 stitches. Then, to decrease for the back section, for my size S, I knit 1 stitch, and then knit 3 more stitches, knit 2 together. And repeat this pattern with knit 3, knit 2 together until the last stitch before the marker. I knit the last stitch And I have decreased 14 stitches for the back section. Continue working the 2x2 rib pattern without any decreases until you reach the front section. Here we follow the same decrease method we use for the back to decrease more stitches. Finish the round by working the remaining stitches in the 2x2 rib pattern until we reach the beginning of the round marker. This completes the setup round, creating a more fitted bottom edge. Let's first explore the 2x2 rib edge. Here the stitch count for each body section, back and front, should be divisible by 4 plus 2 additional stitches. Don't worry if your stitch count is slightly different. You can easily add or remove a few stitches to reach the required total. Grab your 3.5 mm US size 4 needles and start from the beginning of the round marker. Knit 2, purl 2 across all stitches for this round. After completing the first side ribbing and reaching the back section, you can remove the stitch marker and continue working the rib pattern. The next is purl 2 stitches. As you reach the next side ribbing section, pay attention that the first 2 stitches you knit are aligned with the existing side ribbing pattern. If they are not, it means your back section stitch count isn't divisible by 4 plus 2 additional stitches. No worries, just adjust your knitting accordingly. Once you've completed the first round, work of 14 more rounds in the 2x2 rib pattern for a total of 15 rounds. Finally, cast off the stitches loosely using your preferred method. I use a simple cast-off method, stretching the stitches slightly for a looser finish. And there we have it. Okay, next up we will learn how to create the I-cord edge. If you are working the I-cord edge for the first time, you can use the same needle size as for the body. Step 1. We are at the beginning of the round and we need to cast on 3 new stitches using the knitting cast on method. Here is how. Knit the first stitch on your left needle, but don't drop it off. Swing the right needle around and insert the left needle into this stitch from the bottom up, transferring it back to the left needle. Voila, we have 1 new stitch. Let's repeat this process with the second and third stitches. Knit, hold on the needle, swing the right needle, insert from below, slide back to the left needle. and the third stitch. Now that we have our 3 new stitches, we are ready to start working the I-cord itself. Step 2. We will knit the first 2 stitches and then knit the next 2 stitches together through the back loop. Let's do it. Knit the first stitch. Knit the second stitch. Knit the next 2 stitches through the back loop. We have 3 stitches on our right needle. Step 3. Slide those 3 stitches back to your left needle and get ready to repeat step 2. Knit the first 2 stitches. And then knit the next 2 stitches together through the back loop. And keep repeating this process all the way around until you have only 3 stitches remaining on your needle. Step 4. We have almost finished our I-cord edge. The last step is to join it neatly to the cast on row we created at the beginning. So we have the last 3 stitches left on the needle. Cut the yarn and leave a tail about 25 centimeters or 10 inches. We will use this to weave in the ends later. And grab a tapestry needle. Look back at the beginning of the round where you cast on 3 stitches for the I-cord. You will see 3 little V-shaped stitches. These are the first cast off stitches for the I-cord. Thread your yarn tail onto the tapestry needle. We are going to sew from right to left. Insert the tapestry needle from the right side, going through the first leaf stitch on your needle, and drop the stitch of the needle. Now insert the needle from the right side again, going through the center of the first V-shaped cast-on stitch. Insert the tapestry needle back into the first leaf stitch you just drop off the needle through the left leg. Then go through the second leaf stitch on your needle. Perfect. You can now drop the second leaf stitch off the needle as well. Continuing the pattern, insert your tapestry needle right through the center of the next V-shaped cast-on stitch. The last stitch remained on the needle. Insert the needle through the left leg of the previous stitch you just dropped off, and then go through the next leaf stitch that's still on your needle. And now we can drop it off the needle. And insert the needle through the next V-shaped stitch. Finally, go back to the last dropped off stitch and insert the tapestry needle to its left leg for neat finish. Look at that, almost invisible. Don't worry if you couldn't make it perfect. It's a seam, but we tried to make it as invisible as possible. Let's weave in the yarn tail and we are ready to move on to the sleeves. Alright, let's move on to the sleeves. First, slip the right sleeve stitches from the scrap yarn back onto 4 mm 40 cm circular needles. This is US size 6, 16 inches. I will be using the magic loop technique for the entire sleeve, so if you are unfamiliar with it, I will link a full tutorial above. Next, we will carefully pick up stitches along the armhole. Before you begin, leave a yarn tail about 25 cm, 10 inches long. We will use this later to close any small gaps that might appear. Since I am working on a size small, I will pick up just one stitch before the cast-on underarm stitches. However, to prevent any holes, you can pick up a few extra stitches here. We will decrease those extra stitches in the next round with a knit 2 together. Next, we pick up the underarm stitches. Then I will pick up one stitch before the additional back length and again one extra stitch to avoid a hole. Finally, we pick up stitches from the additional rows for the back. Once we've picked up all the stitches, knit around. When I reach the extra stitch I picked up at the beginning, I decrease it with knit 2 together. Now place a beginning of round marker in the middle of the underarm stitches. This will mark the new beginning of round. As you need, whenever you need to add a new skein of yarn, simply join it here, near the beginning of round marker. From here on out, it's smooth sailing. Just knit all the rounds in the stockinette stitch, knit every stitch, until your sleeve reaches the desired length. If you prefer a 2x2 rib cuff instead of an I-cord cast-off, make sure to knit your sleeve 3 cm, approximately 1.3 inches shorter than the final desired length. We will check back in at the next and final control point. We've finally reached our last control point. I've already finished one sleeve and now it's only left to add a finishing touch to the second one. Take a moment to try on your top. Does the sleeve length feel comfortable? Once you are happy, finish the sleeve with either a 2x2 ribbed cuff or an I-cord cast-off, just as we did for the body bottom edge, but without decreases. And then simply follow the same steps for the second one. And that's it. Fantastic job, everyone! Let's weave in all those yarn ends to make everything nice and neat. Finally, give your beautiful creation a gentle wash to help the knitted fabric bloom and even out. Fill a sink or basin with lukewarm water and add a gentle detergent. Submerge the garment and let it soak for 15-20 minutes. Then rinse it carefully. Squeeze out excess water gently without agitating the fabric too much. Wrap the top in a towel and press down to remove more water. And lay it flat on a clean towel to dry. Take a look. Here is how my Mellow Mood tops looked before washing. And this is the final result. The difference is amazing, right? Definitely worth the extra step. That's it, friends. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and it filled you with confidence to knit a project you will be proud of. If it was helpful, please let me know with a thumbs up. You know, I would love to see your finished Mellow Mood top. I'm so excited about the colors you choose or any personal touch you add. So feel free to share it with me on social media or on Ravelry. In the meantime, I invite you to join my free essay notes. Every Tuesday, I will deliver a dose of knitting inspiration straight to your inbox, helping you develop on your knitting journey. Sign up on my website isanic.com and see you soon.